Shut up and sit down.
Hi, greetings everyone. How you guys doing this Sunday? It is getting hot where I am, so I have the air conditioner on. So hopefully it's not too loud. Oh, wait a second. That's right. That's why I got the mic. I got the mic so that I could be able to do it. All right. Nobody's expecting this, but I have been trying to get back to doing the book bars for weeks. There's been a lot that's been happening to me over the weeks. I've been very sick. Thank you everyone for all your thoughts and prayers, by the way. I had a family member pass away. So I've been dealing with a lot, but I've been really wanting to get back to these. Everyone loves them. And I really wanted to do it, especially now. There's so much great stuff. There's so many authors that have come out with so much great stuff that it's just like, it's floored me. And I really wanted to share some of it with as many, I love diverse romance readers. And so I'm a little off because it's been a while, and also things have not been going kind of straight for me, not overall, but even like just this morning. But I just was like determined. I was like, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. Especially now because I wanted to read. I have some that I want to read, but I also just really wanted to read from Brutal Bloodlines, which is the prequel to the exciting Savage Bloodline mafia romance collection with all of these great authors, 𝓛𝓸𝓿𝓮, 𝓛𝓸𝓿𝓮, Kenya Wright, 𝓛𝓸𝓿𝓮. There's so many of them. 𝓛𝓸𝓿 Wright. Okay, now I'm drawing Sonia B. I'm drawing a blank. There's like so many of them. I need to have a list the next time that I do something like this. But I really wanted to read from it because readers been treated to a prequel to all these exciting mafia romance stories that these wonderful authors are going to be providing to readers. So you get to kind of get introduced to this family of men. They're the 𝓛𝓸𝓬𝓮s, and they're part of this huge international mafia crime family. So they're all over the world and doing all kinds of things. But they definitely have a code. They're like gentlemen mobsters. They have a code. One of them is that you don't hurt women and children, and so they go by this code. And so the readers will get introduced in each story to one of the 𝓛𝓸𝓬𝓮 men, and as they find love. So there's all different kinds of stories. There's second chance romances, friends to lovers, enemies to lovers, which everyone likes, billionaire romances, all kinds, just like a whole bunch of different romances. Okay, so darkness lurks behind their gazes. There's something sinister about their smiles. Their names incite fear in their enemies. Their touch arouses passion in the women they love. They are the 𝓛𝓸𝓬𝓮s. In the streets and sheets, their one word describes them best: savage. All right, so now in this prequel, we're going to meet 𝓛𝓸𝓿𝓮. All right, 𝓛𝓸𝓿𝓮. 𝓛𝓸𝓿 is like his nickname. 𝓛𝓸 is his nickname. And he is going to become the Don. His grandfather was shot. And so he has to take on the reins. So he's going to become the Don. He's very young. And there are older 𝓛𝓸𝓬𝓮 men who kind of like, they think that they should be the next Don. But his grandfather chose him. So in this story, 𝓛𝓸𝓿 is torn. He's got a lot to deal with. He has to deal with the fact that he's going to become the next Don. And he has to find the guy who killed his grandfather. That's what he's really, really focused on. All right. So let's get started. Let me see if I can let me do this right. I kind of skipped past everything. I had to go backwards. How did I end? Oh, because I read it already. That's why. This wasn't one of the blind ones. This one I read. And so now I just give me a second. I have to go back to the beginning. It's a really good story too. I ended up I was like, let me just glance over the first chapter and then that'll be it. But it was just like, now I'm going to read this whole thing. I'm going to end up reading this whole thing all over again. So I just did it, and I just want to introduce chapter 1. Okay, are you guys ready? All right. Tears or rain? Someone was going to die tonight. Someone's life was going to end before the clock struck 12, midnight. Their death would be painful, brutal. No mercy would be shown to them. Anyone who tried to defend them, anyone who got in the way, they would die too. That was the promise 𝓛𝓸𝓿𝓮 had made to his grandfather, one he intended to keep, even if he had to burn the entire city to the ground to do so. Before he could keep his pledge, he first had to bury their fallen and lay to rest the man who had been more like a father than a grandfather to him. The man who had raised and nurtured him, shaping him into the man he was today, one people feared. To this man he owed his life. For this man, tonight, he was going to take a life. Rain fell in the sheets on that cold and dreary January day in Bari, Italy. It was as even if Mother Nature was mourning the loss of 𝓛𝓸𝓿𝓮. Sorry, I got to read from the computer and because the kids killed my tablet. Unlike most of those around him, Enzo refused to stand under the shield of an umbrella. He wanted to feel the cold rain against his skin, letting it drip down his face, replacing the tears he refused to shed. There would be no crying for him. Not yet. Not until he put a bullet in the heart of the bastard responsible for DeLuca's family's pain. Perhaps the rain was a parting gift from his grandfather. He knew Enzo would not feel worthy of crying over his death, not until the person responsible for it was in a coffin too. Enzo refused to allow his grandfather's body to grow cold in the earth while his killer lived life to the fullest, making money, living as if he hadn't caused the death of a Don, as if he hadn't taken the patriarch of the DeLuca family away from them. Enzo refused to allow the actions of a coward to weaken the DeLuca family name. Though he had yet to kill the person responsible, those who knew Enzo understood that the punk was a dead man walking, a zombie. He could see, he could feel, he could hear, but he was already dead, with a bullet already chosen for him, a bullet blessed by Hermano before he'd taken his final breath and left Enzo to deal with the chaos. His grandfather's murder was still moving around in the world of the living, but he was on borrowed time. That time would expire tonight. It had been taken Enzo a few days, but he now knew who the killer was and where to find him. A life for a life. That was the code they lived by. The bastard would pay for his sins with his life, not only because of the promise Enzo had made to his grandfather, but also to prove to their enemies that the DeLuca family was still a family of savages. Under his grandfather's rule, they earned the nickname Savage Gentlemen. They kept to themselves and handled their business as gentlemen, men of honor. But when fucked with, they revealed the brutality of their bloodline and the ruthlessness of their organization. He knew other families were watching and waiting to see if they lived up to the title, wanting to see if they would fall apart or rise now that 𝓛𝓸𝓿𝓮 was gone. Members of the family were also paying close attention. Relatives from all over the world attended their Don's funeral. Half of them hadn't shown their faces in Italy in years. They moved away and only returned home for weddings and funerals. Some hadn't even come for that. They come for the funeral of Don DeLuca, not out of respect, love or loyalty. They came to see if there would be drama and if the passing of the title would cause chaos among the organization. Already there was speculation of who the new Don would be. Whispers of who some wanted it to be had already reached Enzo's ears. Whispering and talking behind backs were actions of weak men. Enzo liked to handle things face to face, and those murmuring behind his back would have to face him soon enough. There was another group of people who'd come to the funeral. His grandfather always referred to them as vultures. They were the ones who'd shown up so they could sidle up to the new leader, trying to get on his good side early so they could make requests later. Then there were those who were happy the old Don was dead. They wanted to verify his demise for themselves and to silently gloat that they'd outlive 𝓛𝓸𝓿𝓮. If Enzo could, he'd put a bullet in all those who felt that way. Then he'd bury them underneath his grandfather's grave so that he could rest in peace, the same way he'd live with his enemies beneath his feet. As Enzo stared around him, he noted that there was one last group of people present. The loyal. They had truly come to pay their respects to their fallen leader. 𝓛𝓪𝓿𝓮 was hated by many, but loved by more. He'd been a fair Don who steered the organization away from wars and into alliances that benefited them. Some had been happy with the changes he made. Others wanted to go back to the old ways. They wanted to go back to the old days when organizations fought against each other regularly to prove which was the more ruthless, to prove who should be the king of the streets. 𝓛𝓸𝓿𝓮 had won that war and claimed the title. He'd found no need to fight continuously. However, there were some who enjoyed the wars, the chaos, the death, the destruction. It was true the wars had led to the respect their organization and family enjoyed today. It led to them becoming the most feared family in Italy. The name 𝓛𝓸𝓿𝓮 was feared and respected worldwide. Yet the wars hadn't only brought them glory, it had brought death and destruction to so many of their people. A lot of the blood and tears had been shed for them to hold their current position as the most powerful family. The Don had taught Enzo to respect those who died so that he could stand where he stood. He told Enzo not to let those blood and tears be shed in vain. Some of the family didn't feel the same way. The problem was determining the motives of those around him. It was hard to tell who was for you and who was against you at a time like this. How was he to know who was crying and who wasn't? Tears or rain? That was the guessing game he was playing, and he was losing. The voice of his right-hand man, Stefano Masiello, sounded over the comm link in his ear. Enzo, after the funeral, you must go to the reception. You have to show your face there. We all do. As soon as the funeral is over, we can head there. Enzo clenched his fist, wet from rainwater dripping off the hem of his coat sleeves. He didn't give a damn about a reception. If he could, he'd skip the entire event. It would only be a bunch of mothers smiling in his face, telling him stories of the old days and the things 𝓛𝓸𝓿𝓮 had done. Enzo ain't got the time for those people. Enzo does not have the time. He heard those stories before. He's seen those smiles. He had more important things to do. He couldn't rest until his fingers were coated with the blood of their enemy. He wouldn't be able to relax until his grandfather was avenged and the entire world knew it. Not if you agree, Enzo. He shifted his gaze to the other side of the burial site and pinned it on Stefan. He knew Stefan was only looking out for him. He needed to attend the reception to keep up appearances. He nodded, just as a shadow crept overhead and the chill of the rain ceased descending upon them. From the corner of his eye, he saw his cousin 𝓛𝓸𝓿𝓮 stepping forward holding an umbrella. The rain is getting harder, Vito told him. I know, but you don't care, right? Enzo nodded. Vito sighed. Both men stood there silent once more as they listened to the priest. Sorry I got here late, Vito apologized. At least you came. Some didn't. They'll pay the penalty. Not everyone was as close to grandfather as you and I. We're all of his blood, and we're all supposed to come home when we're called. You're right. Family is family. We're bound together by blood. When needed, we must come. You sound like grandfather. That's because those are his words. I'm going to miss our monthly chats over the phone. When did you last talk to him? A week before he was shot. If I had known then what I do now, I would have stayed on the phone with him longer. Like his cousin, Enzo had also been playing the if I'd known game. If he'd known what he knew now, he would have spent more time with his grandfather. He would have made time to travel with him. Every time the Don mentioned taking a trip to the States, Enzo's excuse had always been that he was too busy. He'd give anything to take that trip with him now. He swallowed the lump of anguish rising within. No tears. Not yet. wasn't time. Facing Vito, he asked, "What were grandfather's last words to you?" "He told me to always remain true to what I believe in. He told me that he trusted me to do what was right for the family, even if it wasn't of popular opinion. Grandfather talked to you a lot. He liked the road you chosen. He said we needed more men like you to keep us on the right path." For a whole while, neither of them said a word. Then Vito asked, "What were his last words to you?" The Don's last words to Enzo were much different from what he'd said to Vito. That was because he expected something different from Enzo. Though his grandfather's expectations weighed heavily on him, Enzo wouldn't let him down or fold under the pressure. He'd do exactly as he'd been told. He glued his eyes to the casket as it was lowered into the ground. "Goodbye, grandfather. Rest in peace, 𝓛𝓸𝓬𝓮." No crying. It still wasn't time for that yet. "Enzo," Vito called to him, "what were grandfather's last words to you?" As the casket disappeared, Enzo responded, "He told me to remind them of who we are. Savages." Okay. Telling you right now. Now you guys see why I had to keep reading. I love Enzo. I'm just drawn so much into who these characters are potentially going to be, who Enzo is, who his cousin is. You meet a few more DeLucas in the short stories, in the prequel as well. So grab a copy. You can get it for free. For a limited time. You can get introduced to the DeLucas. You can also pre-order the Savage Bloodline collection for 99 cents. Why wouldn't you want to do that? You know, this fabulous series with all of these great authors. So I'm going to put the link to that as well. So grab your free copy of Brutal Bloodline, the prequel, and get to know Enzo a little bit better and some of the DeLucas. And also grab your copy of Savage Bloodline for 99 cents. It's available on Amazon, Apple, Nook as well. So there's all kinds of ways of getting it. Get it now before the price goes up upon release. All right. So I cannot wait for this series, and I cannot wait to read to you guys again. I'm going to try my best to make it Sundays at 11 a.m. All right, no matter what. That's why the air conditioner is running and everything's a little off here. But I really want to get to read these stories. We have some really great authors that are producing some really great stuff, and I want to share a little bit of each of them with everyone, okay? All right, so don't forget, pre-order pre-order Savage Bloodlines and get that prequel. You guys have a great Sunday and enjoy that week. Make it yours. Bye.
Shut up and sit down.